one firm, clear voice. This is how we will deploy our natural resource base to unlock the promise of carbon trading mechanisms under Article 6 and to prevent the plunder of our continent's resources by others.
Now, so that is where the president currently is, and he will be taking part in the 12th in the IGAD summit today, 12th of June 2023, where the heads of states and governments are converging. So let's take a look at what the newspapers are saying this morning. Who is making headlines, who is on top of the pages. So we'll kick it off with the Daily Nation. Quite an interesting headline that talks of Ruto following in Uhuru's footsteps. Birds of a feather, that is the question. Same script, he vowed to chart his own path during the campaigns, but after just about 9 months in office, the actions and policies of President William Ruto's administration have so far done little to differentiate it from that of his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta. Now this will be part of the conversation that we shall be having in just a bit. Ruto following in Uhuru's footsteps, some of the things that he has been able to put up in place, or some of the things or decisions he has made since coming into office, have they been that similar to what the former president was doing? Now, top of the page as well, return of COVID, Kenyans urged to be careful as hospitals report more COVID-19 cases. Now in schools, give us more cash, says principals after the release of 24 billion shillings. They say that is not enough. As well as top of the page, traders protest at Kenya's ban of milk imports from Uganda. But of course, the two key men on top of the page, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and President William Ruto, and the question of are they birds of the same feather, Ruto following in Uhuru's footsteps. That will be making part of the conversation this morning. Now to the Standard, reforms, diploma shocker to varsities. In new proposals to be presented to the president later this week, experts say universities should not offer diploma and certificate courses, a move that will make many institutions drop facilities, lecturers and students. Reforms, diploma shocker to varsities as a new proposals presented to the president later this week, and experts say universities should not offer diploma and certificate courses, a move that will make many institutions drop learners, lecturers and facilities as well, because majority of our universities do offer various diploma courses. Now, Ruto cedes ground, moves to amend tax proposals. The Finance and the Planning Committee that has been set up to take a look at the finance bill have said that they'll be making proposals to key 7 clauses in the finance bill 2023. That is also part of the conversation this morning, whether this will happen. What does this mean for you as a Kenyan citizen, as well as for those stakeholders within this Finance Bill 2023? Also top of the page, Raila in new mass action threat if levies are raised. Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga has said that it is back to the streets if the government fails to adapt some of the recommendations they have put up in place, or if the government fails to reject the Finance Bill 2023 or the tax proposals that have been put up in place. We have a representative from the Movement for Defense of Democracy, MDD, who is in a better position as to whether or not the mass action will solve that problem of the new taxes proposed. Now, Trump still headline act in spite of charges. Now, the former U.S. President Donald Trump has been indicted once again, even as he's one of the leading candidates for the U.S. presidential elections of 2024. Now, a lot of, of course, critics in the U.S. have said that this is likely to dent his ratings in the United States. But is that the key question? Or will he be the man to become the U.S. president for a second and perhaps final term in 2024? Now, churches caught up in land-grabbing scandal, even as activists fear killer police are back with vengeance. And then finally, the Star. Big names line up to replace Haji as the Director of Public Prosecution. Big names line up to replace Haji as the Director of Public Prosecution. Insiders said to be keen on one of their own being picked instead of a newcomer. Now remember, the DPP, Nordin Haji, is leaving the DPP post and is heading to the National Intelligence Service. Now, who are some of the names that are likely to replace him? We have Kioko Kilukumi, who is a senior counsel. The Secretary of Public Prosecutions, Dorcas Odor, is also a candidate. Katwa Kigen, a veteran lawyer. Anne Amadi, the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary. Victor Mule, the Deputy Director of the particular office. Emily Kamau, also the Deputy Director of that particular office. Rashid Kator, Jacinta Nyamosi, Grace Murungi, and Alois Kemo, all Deputy Directors of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. So those are some of the key names or lawyers or senior counsels that you know that are likely to replace DPP Nordin Haji, who once approved has been recommended by the National Assembly Committee, and once approved by the President will be appointed to that particular office. So that leaves the DPP position vacant, Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and like I've said, some of these names are looking to replace Haji as the DPP. And of course, top of the page as well, no more demos. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kindiki tells Raila and Azimio Brigade, no more demos. Interior CS Kindiki tells Raila and Azimio Brigade. So mass demonstrations at the center of it, Finance Bill as well 2023, and the amendments that are to be made in the National Assembly, even as members of Parliament are set to have a conversation or a debate over that bill. So that conversation is coming up next. My guests are already around. That is John Mukoya, Movement for Defense of Democracy, MDD, as well as George Ngaire, a political analyst. So stay with us. After the break, we'll be back with that conversation. Keep it EBN TV.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
From Nairobi, Kenya, this is EBN TV.
A morning news experience that is prepared to prepare you from the day and what to expect. From the four corners of the Republic of Kenya and across the 47 counties, EBN TV brings you Morning Live, an in-depth coverage of the day's top stories and overnight development. We go beyond the hashtag and the headline to make it make sense to you. The newspaper review, social media check, and discussion to bring you up the minute you are up. Morning Live from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. only on EBN TV.
You've seen them on TV. Nakushukuru Mungu wangu kwa kunifikisha hapa.
But do you know their stories? Come with me.
If people look at me,
yes,
even before they hear me, will they see Jesus?
Wezi ambia watu mimi am a worshiper, na wakati you are worshiping people can't encounter God.
Ukisoma hiyo inabidi sana katika ile maisha yako hata kama kwamba hauimbi.
Join me, Teddy Psalmist, Mwana wa Ngolo Mosio
and DJ Show
every Tuesday and Thursday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. only on EBN TV.
This is EBN TV, transforming your world.
News is about people. News is about events.
The exhumation exercise is meant to allow this post-mortem exercise of the 129 bodies that are here.
News is about opinion leaders.
Wale jamaa wa system kwa sababu wamechanganyikiwa, wamekwama, wamerudi katika ile maneno tena ya maandamano.
Issues, conversations, ideas, and about you.
We have never talked about a handshake.
Your voice matters. Your voice must be heard. If you cannot come to us, we will come to you.
Accuracy. It's not simply about getting the facts right. It's about accountability, verifying, validating, and evidence.
Na mtazamaji, mbiu ya mgambo ikilia, jua kuna jambo. Wasaa umewadia kukupasha habari mwafaka na tendeti katika runinga EBN. Jiunge nami Emmanuel Maro kila saa 10 alasiri na saa 1 jioni kwa habari kemkem. Kuja nami.
We take away the lies, the noise, the distortion, the misrepresentation, and give you the truth.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Praise the Lord. This is Pastor Joseph Musajawaza from Unfading Love Ministries. I'm inviting you to join me live on EBN every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. as we get to learn the Word of God on this program known as Victory Through the Word of God. Our church is located in Umoja Inako, just near Oloibon Hotel, next to Delight Junior School. And you can visit us on our website, www.unfadingloveministries.org. I know God will speak to you and change your life and add value to you through the Word of God. The Bible says that God has exalted His Word above all His name. As we go through the Word, victory shall be yours to the glory of God in Jesus' name. God bless you.
From Nairobi, Kenya, this is EBN TV.
A morning news experience that is prepared to prepare you from the day and what to expect. From the four corners of the Republic of Kenya and across the 47 counties, EBN TV brings you morning live and in-depth coverage of the day's top stories and overnight development. We go beyond the hashtag and the headline to make it make sense to you. The newspaper review, social media check and discussion to bring you up the minute you are up. Morning live from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. only on EBN TV.
You've seen them on TV.
Nakushukuru Mungu wangu kwa kunifikisha hapa.
This is EBN TV, transforming your world.
News is about people.
Drive.
News is about events.
The exhumation exercise is meant to allow this post-mortem exercise of the 129 bodies that are here.
News is about opinion leaders.
Wale jamaa wa system kwa sababu wamechanganyikiwa, wamekwama, wamerudi katika ile maneno tena ya maandamano.
Issues, conversations, ideas, and about you.
We have never talked about a handshake.
Your voice matters. Your voice must be heard. If you cannot come to us, we will come to you.
Accuracy. It's not simply about getting the facts right. It's about accountability, verifying, validating, and evidence.
Na mtazamaji, mbiu ya mgambo ikilia, jua kuna jambo. Wasaa umewadia kukupasha habari mwafaka na tendeti katika runinga EBN. Jiunge nami Emmanuel Maro kila saa 10 alasiri na saa 1 jioni kwa habari kemkem. Kuja nami.
We take away the lies, the noise, the distortion, the misrepresentation, and give you the truth.
Praise the Lord. This is Pastor Joseph Musajawaza from Unfading Love Ministries. I'm inviting you to join me live on EBN every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. as we get to learn the Word of God on this program known as Victory Through the Word of God. Our church is located in Umoja Inako, just near Oloibon Hotel, next to Delight Junior School, and you can visit us on our website www.unfadingloveministries.org. I know God will speak to you and change your life and add value to you through the Word of God. The Bible says that God has exalted His Word above all His name. As we go through the Word, victory shall be yours to the glory of God in Jesus' name. God bless you.
With great love and joy, I especially welcome you to worship with us at Redeemed Gospel Church Buruburu. This is a true family church, a true spiritual home. Redeemed Gospel Church Buruburu is home to exuberant prayers, deep and true worship. A house of prayer that will leave you feeling refreshed. Our first service starts at 7:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. and our second service starts at 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Wednesdays, we have our midweek service from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and every Friday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. we have our night of glory. This is the church you have been looking for. This is the place for your spiritual growth and maturity. See you this Sunday and karibu sana.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
From Nairobi, Kenya. This is EBN TV.
A morning news experience that is prepared to prepare you from the day and what to expect. From the four corners of the Republic of Kenya and across the 47 counties, EBN TV brings you morning live and in-depth coverage of the day's top stories and overnight development. We go beyond the hashtag and the headline to make it make sense to you. The newspaper review, social media check and discussion to bring you up the minute you are up. Morning live from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. only on EBN TV.
You've seen them on TV.
Nakushukuru Mungu wangu kwa kunifikisha hapa.
But do you know their stories? Come with me.
If people look at me,
yes,
even before they hear me, will they see Jesus?
Wezi ambia watu mimi am a worshiper, na wakati you are worshiping people can't encounter God.
Ukisoma hiyo inabidi sana katika ile maisha yako hata kama kwamba hauimbi.
Join me, Teddy Psalmist, Mwana wa Ngolo Mosio and DJ Show every Tuesday and Thursday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. only on EBN TV.
This is EBN TV, transforming your world.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. This is Morning Live. I'm glad that you're still here. Now, before the break, I mentioned about the conversation of the day, particularly what is happening on the Daily Nation. Ruto following in Uhuru's footsteps. That is what we'll be starting with as part one, and then later on we'll be getting down to the Finance Bill 2023. There are key steps before it is a bill or it is a law. There has to be a public participation. There has to be a report table at the National Assembly. Members of Parliament have to debate about it. If there's something that they have to amend in that particular bill, then that is what they will do before it is passed into law and given a go-ahead by the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u. So that is the conversation. In studio this morning, I'm joined by George Ngaire, a political analyst. Thank you so much, sir, for making time. Thank you. As well as in just a few minutes, if he makes it, we'll be joined by John Mukoya, who is the Movement for Defense of Democracy member. So let's just get started, George, by what is happening on the Daily Nation. Ruto following in Uhuru's footsteps, says same script, he vowed to chart his own path during the campaign, but after just about 9 months in office, the actions and policies of President William Ruto's administration have so far done little to differentiate it from that of his predecessor, Uhuru Kenyatta. They're talking about the tax proposals, the failure to meet the gender rule, the CS appointments. There's also luring opposition members of parliament to government side. So far, what have you made of the administration of President William Ruto?
Very interesting. Still very early though.
Yeah.
Just about 9 months coming in.
Yes.
But as a leader, sometimes when you are in that phase, when you're campaigning for an election, at that point you do not really have especially if you haven't been in government. For those that come in as first-time leaders, they haven't quite gotten the real challenge of managing a country. It's easy. They always say it's easier said outside than when you get into the position there. It reminds me very quickly about President Vladimir Putin of Russia. He was a civil servant. He was never a politician at the time when he was coming in. And when he was coming in, he had these very big ideas of how he would love to see, Russia grow.
Yes.
So 10 years later into his presidency, they asked him a very interesting question. They told him, Mr. President, you came in with all these ideas and you wanted to, you promised the citizens these are things that you're supposed to do. Some of them you've managed to achieve, but we still have some gaps. What do you think, what could be the reason why you haven't been able to achieve this up to this date? Then he admitted, he said, you see, when you're campaigning, you have an idea of how you'd want to run a country. But then when you get in as a leader, and particularly as a president on day one, there's a bunch of people that show up with suits. These are people who are largely have been in government for 20, 30 years. And they tell you from day one that this is how government runs. So President William Ruto, even though he had already served as a deputy president for about 10 years, so he had a picture of how government works. But then when you become that particular leader and you're supposed to make some very tough decisions, especially at a time like this one, when Kenyans are grappling with an extremely difficult time, cost of living, cost of education, poor healthcare, and all these things that are struggling with. When you come in now as president, the decision that you're supposed to make, and you have to balance your interest, your political interest, and the interest of the civilians, it can be very challenging sometimes.
Yeah, but some will argue that he'd at least have an idea of what he's getting into, wouldn't he? 10 years as a deputy president, he says, for the last time he wasn't part of these major decisions, but you'd argue that he should know these things and some of these decisions because he's been almost close to the president and some of the decisions the former president would have made at that time.
When this president came, when President William Ruto was campaigning to be president, there's some 3 important things that he promised Kenyans. First of all, he said he was going to create a very lean and efficient government, unlike the dynasty government that was up for positions.
Yeah.
He promised to have a very honest government of people that really mean well for the country, and then he promised to make it as inclusive as possible.
Yes.
Remember, in his acceptance speech, his biggest acknowledgement, besides IBC chairman Chebukati, who he said was his hero, he also said that Kenyans have ashamed tribalists, because he was able to cut through, other regions that traditionally were not, sort of expected to be, his strongholds. He was able to come up with enormous votes in the western region, huge, big performance in Bungoma, as you already know, 235,000 votes. He beat Raila at the coast in Kwale, Kwale County. They were able to flip that county and not just walk out with votes, even walk out to the governorship of that county. So he acknowledged that indeed he was able to, surpass, Kenyans were able to surpass the whole tribal affiliation.
Yes.
But then the very day he was sworn in and was coming up with his first cabinet, you realize that his very first appointment was the appointment of the prime cabinet secretary. Right? And Makiu, he had run across the country telling people that, our opponents only think about our positions. They want to create this prime minister's position and stuff like that. So there's a difference between what you say when you're running a campaign and then when you get in a whatever leadership position. He might be a president, but the same we could talk of in say in the counties with the governors. But when you come in now, you have to strike a balance between the political interest, your own personal interest, and sometimes the very basic needs of civilians like cost of living, and he hasn't quite been able to manage that so far.
All right, so looking at the CS appointments, well, there's a court order on that that has barred them from getting into office. So they're still not in office yet, but there was a decry of just the huge number of CS appointments that he had made. And, looking at what they said after that, we need all hands on deck. So hands on deck, does it justify the increased appointments that he made?
That probably is the most, and in the end, this is going to be one of his political Waterloos as days go by. Because if there's one thing that was the underlying key issue of his campaign was that he completely demolished the former President Uhuru Kenyatta's regime and the coalition that he was campaigning for, which is the Azimio coalition. And he insisted that in all his campaigns, he was saying that, these people are only about jobs and position for big men. And for President William Ruto to come in and double the number, we went from 23 cabinet administrative secretaries to 51. He didn't just do that. He also he also added the number of state departments from at least 43 PSs to at least 51. You can imagine that's already outrightly a bloated government with a prime cabinet secretary, with an office of the wife of the prime cabinet secretary. So that's what happens, as a politician, and so far he has completely failed in terms of those few promises that he had made.
All right, so there are also other issues that he has been able to do so far. He's failed to meet the 2/3 gender rule. If we remember keenly, some of the things he did during the campaign period was to form a women's charter, particularly after the running mate at that time for Azimio la Umoja, Martha Karua, was, announced. He now met women and said, this government will be yours, but he has failed to meet that 2/3 gender rule. Well, he's talked little about that as well. There's also the housing fund, which he has, put up in place in the Finance Bill 2023. He also plans to lease out sports, and most importantly, what has also made what we'd say Azimio la Umoja coalition leaders angry is the luring of opposition members of parliament to the government side. Outrightly not doing what he said he will do and luring the opposition members of parliament to the government side. Does that play a hand in just, what he intends to achieve? Do opposition MPs play a hand in what he intends to achieve?
What's interesting though, now that you mentioned it, this president, I remember the day when the Azimio coalition formally, introduced former cabinet minister Emma Kakarua as a running mate, and they were running on this women empowerment platform. In the dismissal of that appointment, the president at the time, as a deputy president and the watchful, the Kenya Kwanza coalition, they quickly dismissed it and say that just giving one position to one person does not really show commitment in terms of women empowerment. In fact, this president is going to have half of his cabinet that is going to be women.
Yes.
And so clearly, with at least 22 cabinet positions, at least 22 cabinet positions, constitutional provider, you'd expect at least 11 women.
Yeah.
But the president did go, but when he became president, you've seen he's been about, I think he has about 6 or 7 cabinet secretaries. And we also have a good friend of mine, Harriet Chigai. She sits in a cabinet position as a she's a CS, even though, an advice on women affairs. The president hasn't quite met the promise that he said about 50%. And Cynthia, this is the thing now. When you're campaigning as an outsider, it becomes very easy to come up with all these issues. But now that he's president, it will be interesting to see how it goes going forward. And as you mentioned about the finance bill, I think we'll discuss it later. If President William Ruto succeeds to pass this finance bill and is able to tax the fuel levy from, is able to increase the fuel levy from 8% to 16%, technically affecting the entire value chain of production, which begins from breakfast, lunch, and then also the cost of transport. He would have set him up for a tough 2027 election, and easily given the opposition, which was struggling in organizing itself, is easily giving him the bullets, to be able to counter him.
Yeah, so speaking of opposition, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'd love to introduce my other guest, John Mukoya, for Movement for Defense of Democracy, MDD. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, but I'm sorry I'm late. Your place, there's a lot of jam. I think I followed the wrong route.
Okay.
Yes.
But regardless, we are so happy to have you.
Yes.
And so you've just come in when you're having a conversation about the headline on the Daily Nation that talks about, Ruto following in Uhuru's footsteps. Perhaps, reading from the same script, he vowed to chart his own path during the campaigns. But after just about 9 months in office, the actions and policies of President William Ruto have so far done little to differentiate it from that of his predecessor, Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, I know the last time we met, we were in campaign mode and under previous administration. But you are in a better position to speak about the government from an opposition's point of view. How is the president doing so far?
This is a president who came to power through deceit. And is a president that doesn't fear to lie every morning when he wakes up. Let's forget about issues that is following the footsteps of Uhuru or whatever. This is a president that lies every day. That a president that cannot actually do exactly what he was campaigning on. That today we have William Ruto in power, who feels that that power belongs to him and he should not be advised by anyone. He says he wants an opposition, but at the same time he doesn't want that opposition. You now wonder, he says he wants to be checked, but at the same time he doesn't want to be checked. We in opposition, and under Movement of Defense of Democracy, which I'm there as a national convener, I do say that William Ruto is set to fail. How to fail? We are having a government in place that doesn't inspire hope to anyone, both the president and the deputy. When they wake up in the morning, we have a president who will threaten MPs and say that you must pass this. What about Kenyans? We are in a position where we are saying that as a country, if we continue this way, that you want me to rate William Ruto, I have nothing to rate about William Ruto. I'm sorry.
Hasn't he done anything so far?
What he has done is about threats and lies. That is so far what he has done. Because I will start, my brother was talking about women, that William talked about women. If you're a president who can lie about diapers to women, then you don't expect anything that is going to come out, leave alone appointments and anything. He lied about diapers. Today, those women do not have diapers. What do you expect of him? Where do you want me to rate him? Maybe we are his finance bill that is coming, that we are against it. let's wait and see. But a president who got to power, crying every day, oh, money was stolen, everything, we were given a coffer that doesn't have anything. What do you want us to rate him? Cynthia, let's be sincere. What do you want to rate William Ruto?
But those in government would argue that he came at a time, we know, looking at just the economic situation in the country and what the former regime, which he was part of, had done, you know, the debt crisis.
Maybe to correct you, there's no former regime. William Ruto was in that regime. So when you talk about former regime, I'm wondering which regime. He was the deputy president of that regime for 10 years. We are talking about an outsider. William Ruto was not an outsider. The person who was an outsider was Raila Amolo Odinga. You know, we don't have to pamper William so much. This is a person who was in power for 10 years. He should have known that this is where the government is leaking. He should have known that when I'm getting to power, this is what I'm supposed to do. Is he doing so? He's not doing so. He has made life so difficult than he found it. We are looking at a situation where that we better had the life of Uhuru Kenyatta than the life we are having of William Ruto. He's someone who is so much concentrating on tax that everything should be taxed. Even the water that you are taking today, remember, is going to be taxed tomorrow. Yeah. There's lust of money and there's lust of taxes. That's why we are saying, Cynthia, when I sit here, I have nothing to laugh about. I'm embarrassed as a Kenyan that I do not understand the policies that William believes in. We have heard about our sister Chigai. Which portfolio does Chigai hold? As a woman being appointed, which portfolio? Where? If it's not what he has been placed in that government there, to be doing what he's doing just to appear on media, to add the number of women. I'm sorry, Cynthia.
Yeah, allow me to interject, but Ngaire said here that, you know, the opposition seems unorganized, and one of the things that we've been looking at is a lot of opposition MPs being lured to the government side. Talk of you know, Felix Oduor, the Langata member of parliament, who is now basically speaking one language, is that of the government. So does it feel like it feels like the opposition is unorganized?
Let me answer you. You know, and talk about opposition being disorganized. I really wonder. The opposition is not disorganized. We are having a president who does not respect democracy. If you are a president who is going to buy off the opposition, then you talk about the opposition being disorganized. That is wrong. It is not about the opposition being deorganized. The opposition is so much organized. But we are having a president who is buying off anything that opposes him. At the end of the day, we are having individuals who are disorganized, not the opposition. When you quote and say opposition, then you mean the whole fraternity. We are having individuals who go to power through disorganization. They are being bought. People who do not believe in principles. We have a democracy of parties. Does William Ruto believe in multi-party? I don't think he does. Because if William Ruto believes in multi-party, he could not go ahead and buy off parties that are affiliated to Azimio.
What are some of the measures that you have put up to sound a warning to
the measures we have put on to sound a warning is that we are having a bipartisan, and that bipartisan maybe that has failed. In that bipartisan, we said categorically that one of the articles in that bipartisan, and my party leader, who is Raila Amolo Odinga, said that if you are shifted from Azimio, then it's a must that you must leave the seat and go for a campaign. That is democracy. And we are waiting to see if William Ruto is going to respect that any MP that has shifted from Azimio and gone to UDA, it is time for them to leave Azimio, go back for a re-election.
Ngaire, let me just bring you in here.
Yes.
Mukoya talks about, you know, a member of parliament that now allies themselves to the government should step down from their position as MPs under the party they were chosen through, and that is either ODM or Wiper, whatever it is in the Azimio. What is the likelihood of that happening? A member of parliament who has not served a year stepping down to seek the mandate of the people once again to be brought back through the government's ticket?
You know, Cynthia, I come from, you know, the great county of Kakamega, which was the home of the very famous, the late Martin Shikuku. Martin Shikuku, the son of Oyondi. A big fan, he was a friend of mine. I used to go meet him, you know, in the last few days before he passed on. Yeah. An old man with a very wide experience. And he would tell me of those, you know, memorable days of Ford Kenya when they were trying to take out Kanu. And he said one of the major things that he was satisfied and would go to his grave with as a very proud man was the enactment of the multi-party, you know, politics, and Kenyans being allowed to be able to to really express themselves politically. But even more important was the 2010 constitution, which is supported, with the Orange team, because then we are able to clearly stipulate what we call the separation of powers. It is very unfortunate to have a president, right? It's very unfortunate to have a president who appears not to respect institutions, because the constitution is very clear. The judiciary, the executive, and the National Assembly have very clear, distinct roles, and the reason why they've been structured like that is so that we're able to create oversight, oversight mechanisms that are able to control human beings, because human beings sometimes can be crazy. And so to see a head of state directly threaten members of parliament and even go to an extent of saying that he's waiting to see. I even wondered which MP is he telling. Certainly is not ODM. I think certainly is not ODM. For a president to be able to say that, and that I'm waiting to see who will fall as who. You understand? But the president, it's very unfortunate, and we do have some members of parliament, unfortunately, who were elected by the people. The people who elected them knew who they are voting for. They knew the parties and the coalition they are voting for, and that's what was their wishes. And so to see members of parliament do that without, it is within their constitutional right to be able to choose whatever political affiliation they would want to do now that they've changed their minds, but they must do so legally by doing
so you agree they should step down?
Yes, that's the most rightful thing to do.
But wouldn't you at least, I'll give you a chance to answer this, both of you, take a look at just the budget constraints it would have on the people, because it's the IBC back to square one again, the campaigns and all that. I mean, is that what Kenyans want or need right now?
Cynthia, it's much cheaper having a by-election than having a rogue parliament that allows a president to mismanage billions and billions of shillings.
That's true.
I would rather have a by-election which would cost us 100 million than passing a legislative decision. Remember, the PS for housing, PS Hinga, did say that they are planning to collect, the PS said they're planning to collect at least a maximum of 3,000 shillings from at least 3 million Kenyans who are working, who are in formal jobs. That is 9 billion shillings a month. In a year, we are talking about a petty cash of about 90 billion, in which the president has a free hand to decide who to give and who not to give. Taking us back to the 90s when we had the very famous Mugwaya construction. You had a company that was literally, if you go around and see the kind of projects that Mugwaya construction did, they build NSSF, they build Times Tower, they build the cooperative building, they build the, Kisumu, provincial headquarters in Kisumu, in Embu, in Mombasa. For one company, they build the Nyayo estate, which is the largest housing estate in Africa, 6,000 units, one company. It's because the president had a free hand using what we used to call then the NSSF money to be able to do that. Now this president has created a whole brand new fund that's going to give him 90 billion shillings. And remember, he's even added that they are going to dish out free government land. That, government is going to give land to private investors and then give them money. So he has the money and the land. We're probably going to see, from where I sit, it's probably the biggest land grabbing venture that we are going to do.
They're just allegations. So
maybe just to add on that, that you talk about that, is it cheap? It's not about cheap. It's about discipline and what people believe in. That if you are elected on an ODM ticket, then you should be disciplined and believe in that party and the ideologies of that party and run your term for 5 years. So saying that if it is cheap or expensive, it is all about discipline. Having leaders in power, leaders who believe in. We as Kenyans, if we say we want to let this one continue, then it means that we shall have 2027. Someone will just vie on a ticket of Azimio or UDA. After the person wins, he shifts.
Do you think the people understand that it is cheap discipline-wise, but it is costly budget-wise? Will the people understand that?
When you talk about do people understand, it is the leaders to do the honorable thing, that if for sure they are honorable and not horrible, you have shifted, you have gone to UDA. It is simple and disciplined that you resign. Raila Amolo Odinga resigned. He went and vied again. Why does it appear so difficult? And it appears that William is having a lust for this, and he wishes even all Azimio members to shift from Azimio to UDA. That is his wish. Even if they shifted all of them today morning to UDA, he will feel very okay. That one tells you that this is a person who believes in one party state. This is a person who doesn't believe in multi-party. So we are saying, you have, whether it's going to cost us, it better cost us than having this housing levy that William wants just to keep money somewhere that we do not know. It better cost us that money to have leaders in office who believe in the parties that they are vital and who believe in the ideologies of those parties. Ask my friend Yalango, as you say, what does he believe in? When he gets to UDA, what does he believe in? What really does he believe in?
Well, he says he'll work with the government of the day.
Working with the government of the day is not an issue. He's an MP, he's given CDF. Or his responsibility is representation. Working with the government of the day, it is him as a person working with the government of the day, not the people who elected him. The people who elected him actually on an ODM ticket. And they believe that the MP is ODM. So saying that he's going to work with government of the day, it's not about the government of the day. We have had governments of the day. My brother has talked about Martin Shikuku, who is my uncle. I'm privileged that during his time he worked again as a government, but he was still a representative of the people of Butere. So what is this new that the MPs who have left ODM, who have left Azimio, want to bring to their people? You know, if you tell me that there's something they're bringing to their people on the ground there, I'll be very comfortable, Cynthia, to say that then it's fine to work with the government of the day. Working with the government of the day is just ensuring that they vote for the bill. That is working, because he will receive his money as an individual. He will vote for the bill. Working with the government of the day means that anything the government brings in parliament, they're going to vote with government, or for their own self-interest.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, allow me to shift the debate a bit to the Finance Bill 2023. And this is such a crucial week. We're expecting that the CS for National Treasury, Njuguna Ndungu, the professor, will be reading that budget at the precincts of the National Assembly on Thursday, 15th June. But before that, the bill went through public participation, went through hearings from different stakeholders, from the public, the people, to private sector companies, to other organizations as well. And now it will be tabled at the floor of the National Assembly. So before we get to that, just a quick view, George, is this a people's budget? Does it have, you know, some of these proposals that have been put up to cushion, you know, Kenyans from basic things like, you know, food, shelter, clothing? Does it have that?
When you look at the propositions, some of the key propositions in that particular bill, they are people-centric in terms of what they desire to do, because it's not a secret. Nairobi needs Nairobi has not just Nairobi, within our main urban centers, Nairobi, Kisumu, I think Eldoret, Nakuru, and Mombasa. You know, we have a housing problem because the population is really huge. Indeed, within the Nairobi County itself, we have these old estates that are sitting on prime land, and many people think that it's important to have, and it has been before, what you call the urban renewal program that was there back then with the UNICEF at that particular time. You remember the Kibera housing plan. So there's no doubt about the desires of the provisions of that finance bill. The challenge is the approach of how they want to do it, because what the government has chosen to do, and what President William Ruto has chosen to do, is that while indeed there is a need of those particular things in terms of the cost of living, you know, food and housing and health and all those things, the president hasn't quite the kind of propositions that are in that particular finance bill are not the type that are going to make the situation very easy very quickly. One is, like I did mention before, was like on the fuel levy. Fuel is at the heart of manufacturing because you need energy. Anytime you plug, anytime you raise, you know, a fuel levy, like in this case, even doubling the percentage from 8% to 16%, it has an impact on every other aspect of our lives, which is from food production, from housing, from transport. You move around, you need fuel, and so it has a huge implication on that. Two, when you look at what is done in terms of small businesses, which as we speak are struggling, they introduced something called the turnover rate. You know, what you do, an annual turnover of a business, which means regardless of whether or not you have a business that is generating any income, they're pushing it to 3%. That means it doesn't matter, Cynthia, whether you made some money from your small salon or not, they're going to show up. And the president has even gone ahead to increase the budget allocation for KRA by 1.2 billion, which is going to have what you're calling street tax collectors. it means their characters will be just walking on the streets with a KRA badge and say, Cynthia, you seem like you're heavy, you must be carrying some cosmetics. Have you been paying taxes? Which is terrible. So the president, in terms of the provisions, they mean well, but maybe the format of how they want to finance them is what is a bit tricky.
Yeah, Mukoya, is this a people's budget? Do you feel the people have been put at the center of this budget in terms of just whether it will affect them directly or indirectly? Or is the government so blinded by what some of their, development projects will be, or what they want to achieve, that they cannot see what the people are saying? Because there's been a public participation that has been going on, public hearings that have been going on. Largely, the voices have been saying no to the bill.
As you say, the government is so blinded. This is not a people's budget. And I'll tell you that we have had budgets in this country. This one has been the largely contested one, ever since. Why? That one tells you that people do not feel the budget. And people feel that this budget is, in simple terms, our small girls in town, every Sunday, if you have walked there, the content creators, the ones on TikTok, the one on doing whatever. If you are ready to tax those girls, you are ready to tax those boys, who are just content creators, that one tells you that priorities are lost. Because how do you go to an extent to tax people who only have credits and bundles just to create whatever they're creating? That one tells you that is not people friendly. As my brother said, when you tax fuel, it is going to have a trickling effect, and that trickling effect will affect directly the common man. Leave alone, let's not go to so much explanation or whatever. And then William comes as a president, you come on the public domain and tell people that you like it or not, this budget is going to pass. That is so unfortunate for a president.
Does it go against the principles of public participation?
It really goes against, because if you knew it's going to go through, why did you bring it for us to participate? Why did we participate in actually correcting what is wrong? It means that you had a determination in your mind and you already passed the budget. You know whatever we are discussing, it doesn't affect anything. Then you go ahead and tell us as a president, it's going to go through, you like it or not. The principles of public participation have failed. And this is a William Ruto budget, and regardless, because they are the ones pushing it to a level that they have even formed our MPs. Whether you are in Azimio or you are in UDA, you should think as an MP. You are a representative of the people. You are not a representative of William Ruto and Kachago. Can you think that at the end of the day, these same people, like I really feel sorry for my MPs who come from Kakamega and who come from those rural constituencies. What will they do? Because every morning, people will be at home at your compound. They want school fees, they want... Cynthia, maybe you are here in Nairobi, you might not be seeing students roaming around. Go back in the village. Students are on the road every day, going home for rim paper, going home, I don't know, for tuition. If a student can be chased to go home for 10 shillings or 20 shillings, because other schools are charging 20 shillings, then parents are not able to pay 20 shillings for primary schools who are doing tuition. Then other parents are not able to pay 500 shillings for tuition, which is supposed to be on Saturday for secondary school. That one tells you that when you add on this budget, it is hurting for Kenyans. And we have said it, and I want to say it here, live, that we in Azimio, and especially Movement for Defense of Democracy, if this budget goes through, we are going to seek self-determination.
What does that mean?
That one to you, I want to tell you that is reaching a level where we in Azimio, we have to say that a country where we don't have shares, then we are not shareholders. This is their budget, we leave them their budget, which has shareholders. That we leave those who have shareholders with their budget. This is not our budget. We need our budget. A budget that is people-friendly. A budget that is for the people. But we now understand that for sure, this is not our budget. This budget is for those who have shares. Just as the Deputy President has always said that people who have shares are the ones who are in order. So we are saying, if at the end of the day this budget goes through this week, as the President has threatened, then they should be ready that we in Azimio, and my party leader has said so, we are going to go on our own. Let them have their country. We shall have our country.
You say you go on your own. I mean, Where will you go? You're Kenyans.
We shall be in Kenya. We shall have a Republic of Kenya. They will have Kenya Limited. So we are going to have two countries in this country. Those who do not have shares and those who have shares. We shall remain, those who want to be in Kenya Republic will remain in Kenya Republic. Those who want to be in Kenya Limited will go to Kenya Limited. Because at the end of the day, I can assure you today, Cynthia, let this budget go through. On Monday, I might not be able to reach here. The cost of fuel and everything starting next week. You know, we talk here and take it just as a light note that, oh, the budget, oh, these people are saying this. Everything we talk as me, we are being told that these people are lying. They're just opposing. Is it true that William Ruto has placed tax on content creators, the smallest? Is it true in the budget? It is there. Is it true that William Ruto want to tax workers 3%, which they have now to say that is going to be 1.5. Who has told William Ruto that after 60 years, those workers are going to be there? Who told him that workers want houses? Some of these workers, they have loans already and they have mortgages and they have their houses. You come and tell them, William Ruto says in his statement that, you know, after 60 years, you are going to own a house. Cynthia, who told you that I'm going to be there 60 years? I'm not going to be there, and even if I will have wished to be there 60 years, you don't force, and you're forcing it on them. I would have wished that UDA could have looked at this budget and came to people to discuss with people, not forcing the people. You know, we have a president, and I'm sorry to say it, I really believed in William when he was in ODM then. This is not the person that we groomed up, we actually groomed him in ODM Academy. Yes.
So, Ngaire, Mukwege talks of a people-friendly budget. Yes. Now, the bill has so many proposals. Yes. We've got the 3% housing fund levy. We've got 15% digital levy for the content creators. We've got 16% VAT on petroleum products. We've got also 20% of the disputed, you know, tax appeals. You have to pay 20% first, even before it is heard. So, when you talk about a people's-friendly budget, how does that look like? Is it just the whole bill that is absolutely terrible, or there are just some few amendments in the bill that need to be changed?
No, the bill is not terrible. When you look at, you know, I've gone through the bill. It has about 163 pages. It's a big bill. It's only that Kenyans have been, you know, somebody sort of picked up the housing, which is legitimate because it's a controversial issue. And also the timing is not quite strategic because it's a time when the cost of living is very high. Yeah. So it has an impact on, you know, the basic income for those who are lucky to have some jobs and things like that. So, but the bill is very big. I've gone through it and some of the provisions, like when you look at it, from even when President William Ruto, in his wisdom, and from how he structured his own government, and when you look at how he was able to actually define the state departments, he appeared to have an idea of where the country should go. Right?
And what idea is that?
And in terms of the structures and how he's been able to structure the state departments, look at what he did in the Department of Foreign Affairs. You know, we used to have one standalone Department of Foreign Affairs. But then with the discovery that, you know, the Kenyans in the diaspora, who are some of the biggest remitters of, you know, actually the Kenyan diaspora are the biggest investors in Kenya. You know, almost $400 billion that comes from the Kenyan diaspora. And when he realized that, he was able to create a standalone state department for, you know, diaspora affairs, which is a big institution. So when you look at how he structured the government, the motive appeared to be like somebody who truly wants to see the average Kenyan come up, you know. So the bill is not terrible, and I did mention it before. I said when you look at the provisions and, you know, sort of the idea of what they would want to do in terms of addressing cost of living, the president has been very clear. That's why he went big on food production. You know, the government, I was at home and I did see, you know, what you have. I was at home when they're doing the fertilizer subsidy program, right? In our county, which I mentioned is Kakamega, we have about 60 wards. We have 187, you know, what you call village admins, and almost 400 what you call community area, right? And they were able to sort of be able to avail the, you know, affordable seeds and you know, the perceived subsidized fertilizer and all that. So the motive seems to be good, but then I repeat that the challenge is on how he wants to execute it. That yes, indeed, we have a housing problem, for example, like you did mention. That yes, indeed, Kenyans need decent housing. When you go around Nairobi, you go there to the slum areas, people are living in very terrible conditions. there is no doubt that their most ideal situation is for them to be able to provide housing. But then it's just how the president has gone around it that is really making it controversial.
So talking about people friendly, what are some of the things that he needs to either reduce on in the budget to make it people friendly? Is it, maintain the petroleum VAT at 8% rather than putting it at 16%? What are some of these specifics that he could have done or the government could have done?
Cynthia, I always say, for a strong economy, you have to have a very strong manufacturing sector. Countries that are considered developed across the world is because they went big on manufacturing. One, they were first able to work on the agriculture so that they're able to produce. You see, as a human being, Cynthia, the first thing you do is you must eat. Then you must be healthy. Then get a chance to go to school before you become productive. You can go around the world, we give you the best platform for you to do your job. But if you show up here, Cynthia, if you haven't eaten for 2 days, you might struggle to even express yourself. So countries that have developed first had to work on their agriculture, work on their food production, and then work on agro-processing so that they're able to create jobs to allow money to circulate, right? So this president, the first thing that he has to do, and has been, and he actually has said it, which is why I'm saying is the challenge is that he's struggling with implementation. There is no doubt about his expression of what is decided. He said the only way to do this is to address food production, and these are the particular measures that we're proposing, to handle. And he said that's why he said he has done away with the subsidy program and he wants to invest in production. And he's appeared to have done to go full mode with the subsidy with the subsidized program for inputs, and the country has been able to see that. Now there's a debate in terms of sourcing, the sourcing of the fertilizer, the cost of that fertilizer. I remember there was a very big scandal around it. They were saying that the Russians had donated the fertilizer to Kenya, but somebody has now they're selling it at subsidized price, so there are people who are making money off that. The president in December, the Minister for Agriculture, the Honorable Mithika Linturi, actually did announce that these are some of the products that they are going to give import duty free, so that they'll be able to come in to self-side production. Can you imagine? And when I got here, I just dropped at Quick Mart here to be able to see the prices. In between January and April, actually they were given the provision to around May, just before we harvest, right? They said that these people are being licensed to bring in duty-free rice. I think there's about 5 or so products. Maize, beans, rice, cooking oil, and something else. They're supposed to ship in freely so that at least we have, at least there's a supply of such commodities. 6 months later, we still have the same flour at a very high price. There's nowhere you're finding flour, which essentially, if you're bringing in flour that is cheap from, say, Brazil, then at least we should be seeing on the counters that, it was very high, but then the bunch of people that were able to bring in 10 million bags, like specifically for maize, they're supposed to bring in 10 million bags, then that should be visible within our shelves. 10 million bags means 900 million kilos of unga, my sister Cynthia. 900 million kilos of unga, if you price it at 100 shillings, is about 90 billion shillings. There's some people who've made abnormal amounts of money between January and now, and they're just moving. I don't even know. That's why I kept saying the position hasn't quite picked out, because those 3 issues are enough to take up this government.
Maybe just to inform Ngaira. Ngaira says he was home and he has seen this government is all full of lies. When you talk about Ngaira was home, where I come from, that's Kakamega County, and he saw a lot of production, fertilizer being given and maize. We are talking about the fertilizer that was given last year also. We are talking about fertilizer that was given in 2020. We are talking about fertilizer that was given in 2021. We will wish to see the production William Ruto is talking about. We have farms like Galana Gulalu, which is just there. When you talk about production, we should talk about massive production, not the small farmers in Mumias, where I come from, that someone has 1 acre and has been given fertilizer and maize, then you expect that one to be production. Someone who was 10 children with 1 acre of land is going to harvest 2 sacks of maize. How would you expect those sacks even to last for even 2 months? It's not going to happen. If William Ruto and his government will be specific and will wish to do production, we need to see massive production. We have a minister, just as my brother has said, Ngaira, who came on television and said that we are going to lease some land outside this country. Are there not enough land in Kenya? We have the schemes in Kitale. Are they already occupied?
they are not serious with production. If they are serious with production, today I will stand here and say that I support William Ruto. If he went to Galana Gulalu, those are our farms. We went to Kitale, those schemes, and we saw massive production. Because when there's massive production, we are sure of people like those ones who are in Kakamega, those ones who are in Viga, are going to be able to get this maize. But when you are talking about fertilizer, that in essence, that we are not assuming Russia gave out fertilizer. And if they talk about subsidizing this fertilizer and people making a kill, they are doing so. Because what is the rush? You have the money to acquire the fertilizer, but you do not have the money to ensure that these millers have the maize to reduce the flour. When William Ruto stands on podium and every celebration, he talks about utapata 150. This is a president who talks about ile tutafanya, tutafanya, tumefanya, tunaenda. Those are the songs we have heard and we are continuing to hear. Even in this budget, my brother Ngaira, I can assure you that this one is just another tutafanya. And then baada ya kufanya, we shall have another one next year again, ya kutenda.
Yeah, Mukoya, still on that now. The bill, has so many clauses in it.
Yes.
It's not just about housing. Also talk about the compensation fee that will also be taxed. So there's so many components.
That's what I'm telling you, that we are not in Azimio. The other day, you just saw my party leader. We had a meeting at JOF, that is Jaramogi Odinga Foundation, and it was actually on each component that this one is going to happen. How do you want to tax the money that I'm going to be compensated by insurance? You still go ahead and say that you are going to exempt and give a leeway for those who did not pay tax for the last 1 year. That one tells you this one is a president who has friends who have evaded tax for all these years. Now they have gotten to power and he knows that most of his friends have evaded tax. You want to give them a leeway of paying it, or even they're not even paying it. You just want to give them a leeway to go free for that tax that they have not paid.
So what would you recommend the government to do? I know you've talked about investments,
Yes.
to large-scale production,
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
But what other proposals would you have that the government should do? Or in other words, what would you have done better?
First of all, on the common man, the VAT that is actually levied on fuel, it should not go on 16, just remain at 8. Because we are having a country that is already struggling. We are not in a rush. This government should not behave like the Kenyans are going to move away. We are not going to move away. We are still here. Can you make people be able to work for you to be able to get tax? If you make them, whatever small they have, not even to work to close down businesses, how will you get the tax? How are you going even to attract more investors to come to this country? We are so much in rushing things that are not a priority. Priority for Kenyans today is food. And that's what we are standing on as Azimio. That first of all, cost of living has to come down. Leave alone all those other things. Chokoras sleep on the streets and they're okay. As long as they've eaten, nobody will kill them and they're not going to die. But they will die if they don't eat. Cost of living, the government has to lower it as much possible. They have to do that.
What exactly would they lower? Should it be food? Should it be fuel? What should it be?
When you lower fuel, definitely even the cost of food will come down. Because one, we have transportation of this food to reach the people. Lower the fuel, lower the cost of food. It will be okay. Yes, Kenyans will remain on a standard level.
Okay. So, Ngaira, the opposition says it will be back to the streets if the government...
It's not a threat. We shall be back on the street.
We'll wait to see, because anything could happen between now and
not with William Ruto.
You could have a change of heart. You never know. So the opposition says they will be heading back to the streets if the government does not listen to them or listen to the people. Does that solve the situation?
On this headline here, Cynthia, it says Ruto cedes ground, moves to amend tax proposal.
Yeah.
It means that there's a chance that the president can relook into some of the provisions that they've made, right, in terms of the tax proposals, because it's not written on a stone.
Yes.
It's not written on a stone. And my cue, even what Kenyans do not know is that even if the president signs the bill, it can still be challenged in court. So there are all these provisions to be able to contain such outrageous proposals that are being done to Kenyans at this particular time. My prayer is that this president, just what I've read here, is that he has conceded, to amend some tax proposals. It's probably what you call a step in the right direction.
Yes.
But my personal plea to the president would be to in fact completely do away with some of the proposals. Some of the proposals that, and I'm speaking as a Kenyan.
What proposal should he do away with?
For me, first of all, they do away with the markup on the fuel levy, which is 8%, to retain it at, which is planning to add it to 16%, to retain it at 8%. To do away with the turnover tax, because even the small businesses that you're running in the communities are even struggling to pay rent. Somebody has a small salon, somebody has a small barber shop, can hardly pay that. So when you say again there's going to be a tax guy to show up, you remember tax is an expense to a business.
Yes.
When you factor your cost of production, tax is a cost as well. So to do away with the turnover tax. 3 is that the withholding tax. Young people that are, the young people who are struggling with jobs and haven't been able to get jobs. Some of them have found solace on the internet. And you see, the internet is the only place where they're able to create content and be able to sort of receive some small money in terms of branding endorsements or advertising from Google. Now, if you go there and say withholding, that the government is going to introduce a withholding tax, people do not understand what a withholding tax. It means, as an advertiser, Cynthia, if you have a digital platform and I want to advertise there, or for you to endorse my product, and I'm Safaricom and I'm giving you a contract for a year, like say the way Akothe does, and you're going to pay me a million shillings a month in terms of advertising. It means, first of all, that particular corporate agrees with you that I'll give you a million shillings. Once you sign the contract, it deducts a 15% of your income, which would totally ignore some other facts that not everybody's making money online. There's a very big assumption that there's free money online, but they're forgetting that, Cynthia, you have to create your even if those who are doing small productions, they have to create the content, they have to have their transport, they have to hire equipment. All these are cost of production for them to deliver that content. And so people are not quite factoring that. And never mind, there is actually another legal provision in terms of taxes, which is that you must at least first earn above the minimum wage, which is 15 to 24,000. So I might be online, indeed making some money, but it's not within the minimum wage, it's not above the minimum wage, so I'm not even within the taxable income. So government should do away with such a provision. It's outrageous. This is not the right time. Maybe as the industry grows, because it's still a struggling industry, when people are discovering that they can make money online. So all those moves the president has to do. This president has to work his plans, and maybe for me, one of the quickest one is by first of all restructuring government. He has a bloated government. He can save money by firing some of these CSS and other people that have...
if you've listened to the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, before, there's a point he said, he made it sound it's in between a rock and a hard place. He said, we still have a debt we need to pay. We cannot continue borrowing, but we also need to raise revenue. Doesn't that just prove the point of these tax proposals? We cannot borrow anymore. So what we are left with is raising our own revenue. How do we do that? We need to get it from taxes. Does it justify these tax proposals that they're saying?
Lee Kuan Yew, the very famous former Prime Minister of Singapore, when he wanted to restructure the government, the first thing he said, for me to succeed, I realized I must have what you call a lean and efficient government that is honest and inclusive. When you say lean, it means you want to have a very small government.
Very true.
When you have a president that comes in and the very first thing it does is to create a bloated government, it means he's not sensitive to the reality, that actually government, he needs money to run operations. Cynthia, 100 million can give you a very small decent factory in my hometown of Malava. Right? 100 million. The 50 billion shilling that this president immediately came in and put it into the Hustler Fund, if you take 290 constituencies and give them 100 million for a factory, it's just about 29 billion. That president in one sweep would have created 290 factories, and today in all the constituencies of the country, people will be earning, right? So he hasn't done that, So the president, he's not very sincere. Well, it's true that we have a challenge with data, national data and all these things, but then, Cynthia, the first thing you do is to cut the cost, So he has low-hanging fruits that he can do, based on what you're saying, what Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and he's very right. And I keep telling you that this government, what they say is true. It's the actions that are reverse of what they're saying. It's true we have a challenge of debt, and it's true government has to raise revenue so that they're able to finance their processes. But when you look at the kind of things they're doing, I've said, and my brother here, Mkoya, and the entire opposition team has enough bullets, quote unquote, to face this government, because there are some three issues that they have to look at. This government hasn't done. It has a bloated government. It has a completely tribalized government that is not ethnically balanced. Then largely, there are some scandals on fertilizer, on food imports, and some of the things they've done in the last 6 months that are enough to really put this government under siege.
Mukoya, one of the key process before this bill is passed in the National Assembly will be the debate and the amendments. Yes. I'm really curious, does the opposition speak the same language in the National Assembly? Already, some of the members of parliament are just single out, like the women representative, Esther Passaris, who says she agrees with the housing plan. So are we likely to see one voice when it comes to voting for this bill? If you came across the headline on the Daily Nation on Saturday, it talked about members of parliament and how they would vote for the bill. And largely 62 members of parliament, some within the opposition, declined to comment, perhaps not have made a decision on how they will vote. But what is the voice? What will be the communication that we should be expecting from Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga to the members of parliament within opposition?
Our leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, has already communicated. The position is very clear that vote no.
Regardless of the amendments that will be made?
Not about the amendment that will be made. If you make an amendment, like you have talked about housing levy, you want to put it at 1.5. We have said we do not want you to tax workers on housing levy. But fine, you have said you want to amend it to 1.5. We still say we do not want you to tax workers at the moment. So the instructions are very clear. Vote no. And those instructions were given, and it was a last instruction, which was given on Thursday, if I'm not wrong, by my party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, that the instructions are very clear. On how members are going to vote in parliament, they have already been given the instructions by the party and by the coalition that go vote no. If you decide not to vote as per the coalition, then that is your personal responsibility. You will face your people, you as an individual. It's not as a coalition. The stand of a coalition is vote no. So when you talk about other members, it's not that in UDA all those members want to vote yes. You have heard the president and the deputy president threatening members. We now have a parliament that we miss a parliament of Kina Martin Shikuku, as my brother Ngaira said. A parliament that have leaders who believe in principles, leaders who believe in representation, leaders who don't believe in a president directing them to do what they should do in parliament. We are having leaders that are going to succumb to pressure, that you must. I'm saying, our leader has given it, we are voting no. We have had leaders from our side, some of them saying, no, I'm not going to vote no, I'm going to vote yes. That is democracy on them. But the democracy should get into your head that what I'm doing, is it right? But on the other side, we have leaders, MPs, who have been elected by the people, who have been told that I'm waiting for you not to vote yes. If you don't vote yes, then at the end of the day, I as the president, as the deputy president, and that's why you have seen the whole of this weekend, Rigade in his hometown, saying that this area, we only have just one woman. And that is how he regards women, that we just have one woman who is making noise, and that is Omshomba. That one tells you the kind of leaders we have, that these leaders we have, they do not have a freedom to decide on whatever is right or what is wrong.
Yeah, and as we wind up, because I know we're out of time, yes. What is the next course of action? If this bill passes, aside from going back to the streets, what other course of action is there?
The truth is that if this bill passes, the bill does not belong to Raila Amolo Odinga. You know, that is what is being assumed. If this finance bill goes through, it doesn't belong to Raila Amolo Odinga. Raila Amolo Odinga, as my party leader, only comes in because he has a feeling of the Kenyans, the suffering of Kenyans. Raila Amolo Odinga can afford flour, even if William Ruto wanted to put it at 1,000 shillings. But those who are going to suffer are the Kenyans.
So what's the next course of action?
The next course of action, opposition, we have said that if this bill goes through, and I sit here and do their say, that if this bill goes through, we are not Kenyans. We are going to belong to our own country. This is a William Ruto Rigathi bill. We are going to have our own country. And I repeat, Cynthia, don't succumb me, don't push me to accept. I'm saying that our stand is simple, that if this bill goes through, we are going to have our own Kenya.
I mean, Raila Odinga is a statesman, yes? And one of the fundamentals of being a statesman is that they need to bring Kenyans together. There has to be unity. So if you say that you
fine, your Raila Odinga is a statesman who has been told that other Kenyans are more important than other Kenyans.
Doesn't it go against the fundamentals of
unity? It doesn't go against the fundamental. We are going to use the legal ways of writing to the UN to tell the UN that we want to be self-determined.
So, Gaida, as we wrap it up, the final word on just this finance bill. If it's passed, if you listen to what people have said, if you've listened to the public hearings, majority of Kenyans are against it. Private sectors, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Kenya National Union of Teachers, I could name them all day. There's so much against some of these amendments. What happens if, you know, assuming like the 3% housing levy is not halted as proposed by some of the members, or look at the 16% VAT, if it's not reduced or maintained at 8%, what happens then?
Just very quickly as we finish, Cynthia, like I did say, my prayer is that this president sits ground and moves to amend the tax proposal as it's written on this headline, because it's the interest of the average Kenyan that we can only push the cost of living down and not go up. In the event that the president succeeds in passing the bill, Kenyans under the new constitution, which is the 2010 constitution, have an alternative, which includes going what you call civil expression, but we also have legal means that you can be able to go and challenge these provisions in court, you know, in a constitutional court, and in areas where they do believe that it affects, you know, the common man, and see what comes from the court before any other fashion. Because I'm a true Kenyan, and I pray that this country, you know, stays together, because that's what we need. We wouldn't want to have a bit to Rwanda. You know, I've seen how countries that are war-torn look like. It's very unfortunate, and we wouldn't want to see our country go there. So very quickly, my take is that if in the event that the bill passes, not just the opposition, all Kenyans are opposition. Remember, it's the duty of every Kenyan to oversight this government, because we pay taxes, including myself. So I pray that they can exhaust some of the, you know, legal means that we do have within our constitution.
Yeah, and Muka, I'm very curious. MDD, where have you been? Movement for Defense of Democracy. What have you been up to?
We have not been anywhere. We have been around. The issue was simple, that our captain, who is Raila Amolo Odinga, told us that we are having bipartisan talks. And those bipartisan talks seems to have failed, or maybe they seem to be failing. So as MDD, when your captain says that right now we need to hold on the politics around, we went down to actually continue recruiting our members, and also advising our members and telling them what is happening in the country. So we have been we have been submarined. We have not come on the surface, but we are going to come. And maybe just on that point, I wish also to remind the Minister of Interior that saying that there are not going to be demos. We have not told him we are going to have demos. Even just Kenyans sitting at home and dying like Shakahola is also a demo enough. So let it not just be assumed. You know, we are tired of being profiled, that anytime something happens in this country, you know, I had his explanation yesterday when he was in Maramanti. He's saying that hata kubali watu kwenda kuharibu biashara ya mtu. We have not said, we in opposition, we are ready to go and destroy any other Kenyan's business. These Kenyans are just still suffering the same way that people in opposition are suffering. We are not interested in destroying or affecting any Kenyan's business. So stop threatening Kenyans and stop instilling fear into Kenyans about opposition. We are saying, bring your bill on Tuesday, pass it. Then face the repercussions. Don't tell us how the repercussions are going to be. You don't decide for us what we are going to do. What we shall do, you'll face it.
And gentlemen, we need to wrap it up. You have a response, Gaida?
No, just very quickly. As we end the show, is that President William Ruto is at a defining moment in this particular bill. If this president succeeds to pass this bill and those drastic and draconian proposals go through, he would have set himself up for a very tough time going ahead.
Very true.
Okay. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for making time this morning. On my immediate right is George Ngaira, a political analyst, and on my farthest right, John Mukoya, a Movement for Defense of Democracy, MDD.
And ODM.
And subsequently ODM party as well. So that is where we wrap it up this morning. Thank you so much for your company. We are glad that you have been watching. It has been State of the Nation, and we've taken a look at aspects of just, President William Ruto's administration. About 9 months later, what has he managed to do? Is he taking in the footsteps of the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, as well as the fate of the Finance Bill 2023? Mukoya here says, if it is passed, then they will be heading their own way. So that is something that we'll be looking forward to see if it actually happens. But thank you for keeping us company. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Do enjoy the rest of your programming. Have a lovely morning.
Thank you.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.